Welcome to the Final Score Network and the Final Score Podcast, presented by Team Anders Realtors. I'm Andy. He's former NCAA student athlete and co-host.
Ryan Gam, two-hand monster flush off the inbound. Ryan Gam slam jam. Oh boy.
Find the TFS pod and our playlists wherever you stream your podcast or music. Follow us on X at TheFinalScore35. Oh, and one more note before we get started.
I'd like to apologize to anyone I've not offended yet. Please be patient. I'll get to you shortly.
Welcome into the 199th edition of the TFS pod. That's right. That means next week will be our 200th. It'll be a big milestone for us. Looking forward to that. Could not do this without you guys and your support. We appreciate all our loyal listeners and those who have gone in and out a little bit. Keep sharing it, and we'll keep doing this for as long as we can until we get tired of it, which hopefully will be for a long time. But a lot to discuss here. Big week in college and NFL. Starting to get the playoff picture in order. Some teams have been eliminated, honestly, in both NFL and college, per se. College basketball, we're in week 2. MTE's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that. It's a good time of the year. Without further ado, I'll take the podium. And I'm going to go with something that really pissed me off. I'm sure we talked about this briefly last week, Dad, on text, but it's NFL. And they fined Nick Bosa $11,000 for wearing his Trump Make America Great Again hat on NBC. He went up behind, I think it was Brock Purdy, when he was being interviewed, and they blurted out and got mad at him about it. And they fined him $11,000 for it, reprimanded him, whatever. And what does Nick Bosa do? Gets a sack last week, goes out, does the Trump dance. What a legend. First and foremost, I want to say this is ridiculous because why are we bringing this into sports? Yet again, we've talked about this. If someone's LeBron can say these things, Steph Curry can say these things about
Steve Kerr,
about the other side, and no one bats an eye. And then when Nick Bosa, who is a very good player, one of the best defensive players in the NFL, does it, he gets, it's poo-pooed. He's fined. People, are like, oh, this is terrible. Where's the equality that you always speak of? The NFL, you're a joke.
and not to mention Black Lives Matter on the back of helmets.
Yep, just
an
ridiculous.
Antifa group.
Really stupid, because if it was the other way, I'm sure that they would applaud it and they'd put it all over national TV and say, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's so good. But guess what? Guess who won?
Exactly. Which is a good way to celebrate the 199th. We did 198 during election night, and it was a late night, and it was a great night. And the U.S. is already making amazing strides with President-elect Trump. Suck it to all you people who voted the other way. Sorry, don't apologize for that. Do your homework next time and maybe pay attention to what you're really voting for. You're not voting for the person. You don't have to like the person. It's the policy. It's the people that they put themselves around. This country is hopefully on its way to a little bit of a rebound. Due for those of us hardworking Americans who are tired of giving their money and all their time and all their energy and everything else to a useless government. I think we're in good shape. This is not a political podcast, obviously, but we have very strong beliefs and strong feelings about things. And one of my favorite first things that Trump is going to do is ban transgender women from women's sports. Hallelujah. Like any woman who voted for women's rights and is okay with a man pretending to be a woman taking up your roles, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should absolutely be ashamed of yourself. So my podcast is kind of along a similar path. We've got, Ryan talk about how it's not okay to do the, Trump thing, the Trump hat on, by Joey Bosa. And, in the past, this has been something that's kind of flashed its way and kind of comes and goes, and the media tries to squash it. This happened last year with CJ Stroud. NBC actually cut an interview with him where he gave glory to God after a playoff win, I think it was. And then they got accused of it, and then they put it back. Kind of what they did with the MAGA thing. I don't think they've done it this time. My podium is hats off to Jake Bates for the Lions. Not only for, we'll get to the Lions game, in that around the world spot, but not only for his clutchness as a kicker, but just for having the conviction to share his thoughts and his beliefs on national TV afterwards. And I just wanted to read a couple of the excerpts directly from his interview, because this is what we need more of in America, in sports, in everyday life, really, not just in sports. We need less LeBrons, less Steph Currys, less Steve Kerrs, and more of this as we go forward as a nation. So I'm reading from Jake Bates' post-game interview with Melissa Stark. I think it just shows how good the Lord is. He's so faithful, Bates said in his post-game interview. He was speaking with NBC after his game-winning performance. Bates, who was a brick salesman as recently as last year, used his platform to elevate Jesus Christ and express optimism that others would follow him by learning about his story. Quote, "If anything, I just hope people can see Jesus through my story. That's what I think I'm here to do. It's not to make or miss or be a good kicker or a bad kicker, but spread the love of Jesus. Hopefully I'm able to do that on the stage I'm given." The only other person, CJ Stroud is one, and there's several other players that have been a little bit more outward in their Christianity. It reminds me of Kurt Warner back in the late 90s to early 2000 era when he came on board, unashamed, unabashed with his glory where it deserves to be. And, in this world where we sit and we have to listen to, the hate spewed, the stuff that goes on against Caitlin Clark because she's a white woman, the stuff that goes, comes out of LeBron James' mouth and so on and so forth. I just wanted to applaud a guy who didn't even kick a field goal in a game until he played for the Michigan Panthers. This dude played soccer in college, and then he transferred, I think, for his fifth year to be a kickoff specialist, and tried to make his way. And I think he was maybe originally in like a Carolina Panthers camp. It was actually kind of a Kurt Warner type of story, but for a kicker, and found his way. Obviously, made some huge kicks. I think he made like 3 or 4 60-plus yard kicks in the UFL, former USFL for the Michigan Panthers. Lions signed him. Their returning kicker, Badgley, tore his hamstring. De facto was his job. Dan Campbell kind of slowly brought him along to keep the pressure down. He's not missed a field goal. He's missed one extra point. He made a 58 to 52 yarder. And instead of going on and just soaking up the glory of what he did in a very improbable Lions comeback, he gave the glory where it deserves. And I want to give a hats off, because we need more of that in this world and less of the other just vileness and evil that exists in so many athletes and celebrities and people who try to jam their opinions down our throat.
Yep, very well said. Let's get to flag this week. Soon will be tee up, but we'll keep it flagged with football season winding down. We're going to flag U of M. We talked about this earlier. Came out $10.5 million is what they are trying to offer Bryce Underwood, number one quarterback in the class of 2025 from Belleville, Michigan, currently committed to LSU. Michigan said $8 million last week. They upped it to $10.5 million. And what did Bryce Underwood do as soon as that came out this morning on Twitter? Posted a picture of him in an LSU jersey.
Love it for that. And the flag, whatever tee up you want to call it, from Michigan too. Here's the part not a lot of people know. Now, this guy has made the rounds already this year. He started as some sort of a coordinator, became a head coach when the coach got fired for Mumford or somebody. Mumford sucked ass. Who was his offensive coordinator here in the playoff run for Belleville? Connor Stallions. But, he doesn't have anything to do with Michigan. There's no smoke here. There's nothing here. So, tee up again, Michigan with double fingers blaring to the NCAA, to the rest of college football, using Connor Stallions again. I hope Underwood does keep his commitment to LSU. I think he'd be developed. I think he'd have a lot more talent around LSU, because I was talking to a couple people at work, including Uncle Tom. I was texting with him, how would Michigan pay for an O-line, receivers, running backs, and tight ends by giving their quarterback $10.5 million? Good luck. Nobody's got that kind of money. It's disgusting in college football anyway. Put the toothpaste back in the tube already and fix the problem.
Never going to happen.
And second of all, I'm just so tired of the arrogance there. Like, we can buy you. We'll offer you 20 next, and then we'll offer you 30 next. What ridiculous. I would say that too if it was Florida or Georgia or Alabama. No 18-year-old kid who's unproven except for at the high school ranks. I don't care if you think he's the next best thing. I've seen a lot of next best things end up as nothing. So kind of if he goes there, I hope he flames out and in a hurry so that it's another, kind of indictment on the people that are throwing money hand over fist. But I hope really, truly, for his sake, he sticks to his guns and sticks to his commitment and shows the young people in the United States that you make a commitment and you stick to it.
Yeah. Why would you want to play quarterback in Michigan? What's their track record? J.J. McCarthy in the last 20 years, and he's not even that great, arguably, but whatever. It's funny either way, because you're putting $10 million into a guy that freshmen don't usually succeed in college football as a quarterback, especially if you're putting that much weight on them. Not good. Whatever. All right, let's get to Around the World. Week 11 review. It was another wild week. We've had a good amount of chaos weeks. We'll start with Friday night in the Big Ten. UCLA kind of making a nice little
They're on a roll.
run. Beat an Iowa team that had been playing decent football. They looked pretty good from what I saw.
I think they've won 3 in a row, right?
Yeah, they're trying to flirt with a bowl game. I don't know if it's going to happen, but, they're giving themselves a chance. It's good for UCLA. Again, traveling out west. It's a bear for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I got to re-up the record
For the
thing. It's not good. Teams. I can tell you that. If you got to go 2 or 3 time zone, it is not good. And this weekend was not good to anybody that had to do that.
Didn't watch any of the Ohio State game. They pummeled Purdue. We thought Purdue would cover. They did not. Ohio State pummels them.
But going back to the Iowa game, I did watch a good chunk of that. And UCLA also, by the way, not only did they win by 3, but they threw an interception and they fumbled in the end zone in the first half. Iowa is again stricken by no passing game. And UCLA took away the run just like Michigan State did. And they've got a more athletic quarterback in there now than McNamara, but they still can't throw the ball. And that's until Iowa commits to throwing the ball and running a little bit more than just the power I, they're going to be a 7-5, 8-4, maybe 9-3 team.
Yeah, always. Minnesota Rutgers. Minnesota was playing really, really well, and they go to Rutgers and lose to a bad Rutgers team, a team that's reeling. They needed that. They're keeping themselves alive for a bowl. But dang, Minnesota, that's disappointing as a team that had been trending up and up to lose to a not so good Rutgers team. That's not great. And your former quarterback got the best of you. Tough there. Michigan, Indiana. I knew it would be close. Indiana looked really good, then they kind of struggled. Once Rourke threw an interception, he kind of turtled a little bit, didn't look himself, was way off target.
But a couple times down the stretch, he had number 13 drop 2 passes.
But
that
here's
were
the
critical.
thing, if Michigan had a quarterback, they probably win that game by 10 points. They don't have a quarterback. They have Davis Warren back there who's pretty terrible. Hardly played Mullings.
They're not having receivers either.
Bad receivers. Loveland's a really good tight end. Their defense is pretty solid.
Mullings, who still, by the way, this week claims he was breaking up the fight by stomping on the ground at the Michigan State Michigan State game.
Nice guy.
That's how I've seen guys break up
Indiana,
fights.
only second win over Michigan since 1987. It's pretty cool.
First 10-0 start ever.
Yep, 10-0. I still can't get over that.
And really, honestly, unless a miracle happens, there's no way they lose to Purdue. Even if they lose to Ohio State this weekend, they're going to the playoff.
Yeah. Hopefully Penn State doesn't get in.
At 11-1, they would go to the playoff, which kudos to them.
Yeah, good for them. Maryland, Oregon. Maryland actually hung okay with them.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Oregon doesn't beat teams too badly. They haven't really all year, except for Purdue. But good win for Oregon, staying on that undefeated track.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a really tough finish to the season, so I'm guessing they'll be 12-0 going to Indy. Penn State, Washington. We both thought Washington would cover. They didn't even show up. Another team that goes 3 time zones.
Man, that was a night game this
Penn
time
State's
at least.
white out, gets smoked.
Yep.
here's the thing. Penn State's not good. Washington's not good. Like, the Big Ten is the 3 teams. Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon. No one else is good.
I mean, there's 13 teams that are 4-5 to 6-4. Purdue is the only team eliminated from a bowl game at 1-8. You got Penn State is 8-1, but I agree with Ryan, they're not very good. Then you got Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. Ohio State and Indiana play this week. Oregon doesn't play any of those guys until potentially the Big Ten championship game. I still think Oregon's probably the most complete team that I've seen play, and with my own eyes this year. Ohio State's defense is really good. Their offense still leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. Indiana, we'll see how they can do against the big boys this week. We'll get into that when we do our picks, and I agree with Ryan. Penn State is just, their defense is really good.
Next week, not this week.
Ohio State and Indiana. Oh yeah, they got a bye. That's right.
Rest of college football. Georgia, yikes. Ole Miss finally gets a big win.
What's going on in Georgia too? They had a player supposedly that was accused of celebrating with Ole Miss fans or something like that in a video.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it wasn't what it appeared to be, but Kirby Smart called him out in his press conference.
Oh wow, good for him. Georgia's just not been. Carson Beck's been pretty horrible. And I just don't think they're that good this year. They're just kind of They're like good but not great. Just kind of college football in general.
That's honestly what's going to be good about the playoff is I don't think anybody's.
When we look at Miami, they had been playing awesome, and they lose to Georgia Tech
against Georgia Tech.
Kind of blow it, even though Cam Ward has been phenomenal. Texas still looking good. I still think them and Oregon are the 2 best teams.
I think so too,
in my eyes. Tennessee's kind of skating by. They're not great.
Defense is better than
big
their
game
offense.
Against Georgia this week. BYU
elimination game, really. I mean, maybe not for Tennessee, but
probably is.
But probably
BYU, Utah. BYU squeaked by. They're still in the
Utah's AD or coach or somebody got big time fined by the Big 12 for making comments about the officials or something like that after that game.
Whatever. Notre Dame smokes Florida State 1-9. Florida State, yikes.
They cleaned house, fired their coordinators.
Yep. LSU, Bama. Bama looked good. Milroe, 185
and Death yards, Valley.
4 touchdowns. He's a beast. The teams I didn't even know Iowa State lost to Kansas. They're reeling. Pitt
2 in a row. Yeah.
Off the rails, lost 2 in a row.
Virginia, they lost 2 in a row.
I'm sorry to say it. Colorado has a very good chance of making the playoff. They have the best odds in the Big 12.
We could have flagged them too, by the way, for refusing to participate in Texas Tech's annual Veterans Day thing that they do, where they do a fundraiser and they do American flag versions of their game day T-shirts, and all the money goes to veterans or whatever. And Colorado refused to license anything with the American flag. Shocking. That's a double finger from me. Screw you, Colorado, and Prime, and some of the trash that I saw in highlights of that game too, like Shadur and the other Sanders, whatever. I can't stand them. I just can't stand them.
You gotta get used to them because they're gonna be.
And then Daddy's talking this week. He'll get him engaged if the wrong team tries to draft Shadur and blah blah blah. He's odds for number 1 pick overall. I feel sorry for you if your team is number 1 and you pick a quarterback and you pick him. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that right now.
Yeah.
The rest of the NFC East would be thank you very much.
Yeah. I think that's everything I wanted to hit on college.
Let me quick do my ABCs or my grades for the week in college. It's been a little while because Ryan was on a trip. A is for awesome. You got to go Indiana. 10-0 for the first time ever. B is for better than expected. Maryland. I mean, I thought that they fared well even though they lost. C is for come on, man. Miami. You knew that they were going to lay an egg at some point. Georgia Tech always seems to kind of rise up, and they did again. D is for duly noted. Ole Miss. They kind of were left for dead, and they really kind of laid it to Georgia. And F is for fraud. Georgia. All Florida teams in college and pro. The Miami Dolphins beating the Rams on Monday night was the only thing that stood behind every single Florida major Division I and pro team losing in the same weekend for the first time ever.
Wow.
Tampa Bay lost. Jacksonville lost. Florida, Florida State, Miami, FAU, FIU, USF, UCF all lost, and the Dolphins went on the road and won. Save that.
Crazy.
Quickly, my Big Ten power rankings, not a whole lot's changed. It was a very down week for the Big Ten last week. There were so many buys. I think there were 6 total buys, so a good chunk of the league. Purdue's got last place sewn up. I left really Rutgers at 17, even though they won. Northwestern at 16, even though they didn't play. Maryland, I dropped a spot to 15. USC, I dropped a spot. Some of this is because I moved UCLA up. USC, I dropped a spot to 14. Nebraska, a spot to 13. Michigan State, a spot to 11. Michigan, a spot to 12. Michigan, a spot to 11. Washington, a spot to 10. UCLA, I moved up 4 spots. I still don't think they're necessarily that great, but I've taken notice of the way that they've played the last 3-4 weeks, especially. Illinois, I kept where they were in a bye at 8. Minnesota, I dropped a spot to 7. Wisconsin, I moved up a spot to 6. Iowa, I kept at 5. Penn State 4, and then Ryan said before, it's really three-team race: Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. Ohio State, Indiana is kind of like a semifinal for the Big Ten championship game. That way, we either get an Indiana-Oregon Big Ten championship game, or we get an Ohio State-Oregon rematch.
Yep. All right, that's Around the World Spot 1. Let's get to Around the World Spot 2, mailbag. Do you want to do Chris questions first?
Yeah, Chris gave me a couple last week. I sat on this one a little while. Is Aiden Childs the football version of A.J. Hoggard? No.
Not attitude-wise.
No.
Playing-wise, maybe, with the up-and-down play,
But I can take up and down play when you're a building program. A.J. Hoggard did it with good talent around him, and he just was a baked-out ass clown, period.
You know who we played last night? Madi Sissoko and AJ played last night.
Oh, yeah? Who won? Nobody?
Vanderbilt won.
I thought AJ was suspended
for 1 game.
Chris's other question: is Zappala the best big man we've had since Xavier?
I'd say I would say no and say Kohler.
Yeah, honestly, I've been pleasantly
really
surprised. I always have a white big guy whipping boy from Michigan State. Polo would appreciate that because he was that for Izzo, and Judd always had that, and Izzo has always had that too. But I'll tell you, the last 2 games, Kohler's 3-point shot has been the only one that's been decent. He's got a motor. He's not a very good athlete. He can't jump. He gets out rebounded sometimes just because he's a crappy athlete. But he plays hard. He can pick and pop, so he can shoot that outside shot. He's got really crafty post moves. Regardless of how I've knocked him in the past, he's got excellent post moves because he's not super athletic, so he's got to be very patient. So I think Zappala is a good big man. I think he's an upgrade from Madi. Funny, I was bagging on Cooper the other day to a new guy at work, and he actually played pretty good early against Kansas. Decent. So, but he's not a long-term solution. A couple minutes a game, okay, fine, whatever. I mean, I think Zappala is a good pickup, a better pickup than maybe I expected because he's got some bulk to him. He can rebound.
He's got
Higgins, he's got some moves. But I think Kohler is probably the best big man we've had since.
Which leads me into Mitch's questions. His first question, I didn't even read his questions until right now. Quoting Andy here, Kohler still sucks from last week's pod. Did the Niagara and Kansas games change your mind? It has changed mine. And I think we answered that question.
Yeah, so Mitch, I mean, no doubt, I kind of ragged on him. I think Cooper is really going to be my Ryan's too, my white big guy whipping boy more than anybody. Here's the thing. I think I've always just frustrated with Kohler because he's like me. He's so unathletic that he's got to be able to do things like get position and hang on to the ball when he gets it, like in rebounding or whatever. But I mean, he had a double-double against, I think he had 2 double-doubles actually against Niagara and Kansas. He did 12 and 10. He had a career high against Niagara. I think the thing that's most impressed me is that he's running the floor like crazy. Like he's getting in position. He's opening it up for other guys. I do think he's our best post scoring option, regardless of how I felt before. I think he finishes way better than some of our other guys around the basket,
which isn't great.
And he's stretched his game to include a 3-point game. Now, do I think he's going to be like the best player in Michigan State this year? No, but he's definitely fallen from my number 1 whipping boy to it's clearly far and away Cooper. Kohler is still going to get my ire once in a while for sure, but I was really pleased with the way that he played the other day, especially off the bench. I think he gives Michigan State some pop off the bench. I kind of hope they keep him off the bench for that purpose. Yeah, I mean, I can admit I was wrong, and he's proven me wrong, and I hope he continues to.
Yeah. Number 2, the Lions should remove the last names from their jerseys and just put grit in all caps. Agree or disagree? I think it'd be kind of sick. I don't even know if that's legal in the NFL, but that's actually kind of sweet.
I'd love it. Well, here's another thing. They should probably never wear the white pants again for James Houston's sake.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Did you see that TikTok of Amon Ra was on like Debo's podcast or whatever, and he was talking about it? He was just like dying laughing.
Oh, my gosh.
No, actually, I really like the all whites. They're icy. Shout out to Michigan State wearing the all whites with the Gruff Sparty helmet this week at Illinois. But that was pretty damn funny. But hey, Mitch, that's a great call. I mean, that is the Lions. And look, here's the thing about them. If you listen to them and watch their post-game stuff, I love to watch their locker room videos. I see them on TikTok all the time with Campbell and giving game balls and whatever. There is not a single person who gets a game ball that doesn't give the props back to his team or say, I love this team or whatever. That is the most put together pro locker room in any sport I've seen in a really long time. That's kudos to Campbell and his staff and really the players and the kind of people that they bring in. And they are all grit, because we'll get to it more in the NFL segment, but that was a pile of flaming dog poop of a game, and they found a way to win because of grit.
Yep, I agree. Our third one, I think both of Jake Bates' made field goals in that game were good from 70 yards. Do you think we will see a 70-yard field goal made before the end of the season?
Man, I bet you we could see one attempted. So was it Tucker made 66? Was it against the Lions? That's the record. He dunked the crossbar and got it over in a typical Lions way to lose that game. It's amazing. Even 5 years ago, a 50-plus yard field goal was a gamble. And coaches a lot of times would either just play the odds and go for fourth down, or they would punt, right, for field position. And anymore, if you can't bang a 50 to 60-yarder with pretty regularity, like 80% of the time, you're not in the NFL. And the thing is like Bates is not an overly big guy. He just has a really powerful leg. He hits the ball really well. I would not surprise me to see somebody do it. It's going to be inside. It's not going to be in the elements, but it wouldn't surprise me. And then that guy will get immediately drug tested. But,
right, exactly.
I wouldn't surprise me. I don't know that it'll happen this year, but like forever, 63 was the record, and then 65 finally when Tucker did it against the Lions. So I think it's easier said than done when there's pressure. And those field goals were both made by like an inch. But it doesn't matter. Got it between the goalposts. But I mean, those things were high up. I agree. They probably would have been good from 70.
As next one, I'm manifesting the 2022 victory as MSU plays Illinois this week. What do you think is the key to a Spartans victory? I'll give you a few. Ball control and security. I think that if Michigan State wins the turnover battle, they win the game. I think they have to force one. Or maybe two.
Altmaier is one of the more efficient,
very good.
But he's one of the more efficient quarterbacks statistically.
He throws picks though.
No, 3 all year.
I thought he's thrown more than that.
He has one of the lowest pick rates in the.
Got to be able to run the ball. If Michigan State can exert their will on him, I think that'll.
Yeah, Illinois does not have much of an offense. Honestly, I mean they've been pretty efficient passing the ball. They've been kind of mired in it for the last several weeks. I think their defense is pretty good. They're actually pretty on par with Michigan State's defense. I think their scoring defense is a smidge better. Michigan State's overall defense is a smidge better. For me, it's going to come down to probably special teams and then mistakes. Who makes less mistakes and who makes a big play on special teams? I think the teams are probably pretty evenly matched. I think Michigan State's got a better offensive passing attack. I think their run games pretty much cancel each other out. I think Michigan State probably has a slight edge in pass defense compared to Illinois, and that's probably where there's going to be a difference if a lot of mistakes aren't made.
Mm-hmm. Last one, worst winter/cold golf feeling, catching a long iron thin or soaking your shoes/socks early in the round. Definitely the thin iron. That stings for 3
that does sting. Here's the thing is I'm not going anywhere near water unless I stand in something that is a surprise puddle. So I would go with Ryan. It's that sting on the hands. Winter golf gloves, do a little bit of service to help that, but not a lot.
Not great.
Not a lot.
All right, that's all the mailbag for this week. Thanks, Mitch and Chris, as always. We get to spot 3, and that's Big Ten basketball. We continue on. I think 7 more to go. Rip through these really quick. Probably do a few this week and then finish next week, and we'll be done. All right, left off last week with Penn State, sticking with the P's, Purdue, Painter. This is his 20th season, believe it or not. That's pretty crazy. He's 447 and 203. Last year, obviously, national runner-up, really good season, probably their best season ever. Key law, they lose Edie. Easter Island head is no longer, after 40 years in college of standing in the middle of the paint.
He's on the Robbie Hall
doing whatever he wanted. Mason Gillis was there for a long time. He's gone. Lance Jones, key guard for him last year, gone.
Is Gillis at Duke now?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Duke likes to pick up the dregs of
Big Ten,
Big Ten big guys.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. Key returnees, starts with Braden Smith, preseason All-American. He's a really good player. Just the kind of guard you want. Good passer, defender, leader, good scorer, nice player. Fletcher Lawyer, really hit or miss player, but he can heat up. When Trey Kaufman run, I think he'll be used a lot at center, especially with their key addition, Daniel Jacobson, big guy, 7 foot plus. He was started the first 2 games, broke his leg out for the season last week. So that sucks.
Really broke his leg in a game?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Fractured fibula or something like I did, I guess.
He's
out for the season. Remember, I had a fractured leg.
Yeah, but you didn't break it.
No, I didn't, but that's what it was. That's like what the injury was.
Oh, it was like a knee-on-knee type of thing?
I didn't watch it, so I have no idea. I just know that he's hurt. And then
Interesting.
Jakari, they have no transfers, by the way. And then Jakari Harris, 6'4", wing, decent player coming in, 4-star. But that's really it. No one else really to write home about. They have a tough schedule. Let me pull it up here really quick. Looks like, I can't remember the MTE that they're playing in. Let's not load. They play Alabama tomorrow. That'll be fun. Marquette. So they have a tough one. NC State, a little rematch of their Final Four game, and then they also play Texas A&M and Auburn. So they got a tough non-con schedule. It'll be fun. But Purdue, I think they're the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten. I'll probably stick with that. I think they have a really good chance to do it. They're well coached. They have a good seasoned guards. I think it'll be a good season for them. And continue that trend. Don't think that they're a national championship caliber team, but still obviously really early, so that is very unclear. So maybe that'll change. But that's Purdue. We move to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Peichel, 9th season, 132 and 123. Last year, not a great season, 15-17 overall. We're just very average. Could not score the basketball. Just had some trouble. They're usually a really good defensive team, is what they have been really since Peichel started. And I like him. I think he's a great coach. He's done really well. And believe it or not, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, of all teams, number 9 recruiting class, 2 of the best coming in this year. I'll get to them in a minute, but they lost a lot of key guys. Amarui, big fella, he's at Alabama now, transferred. Gavin Griffiths, goggles guy, he transferred to Nebraska. I talked about that earlier. Mawat Mag, good defender for him, gone. Derek Simpson, gone. Andre Hyatt, gone. Only real good key returnee is Jeremiah Williams. He was a decent guard from last year, became eligible late. Their key additions are very key, though. We'll start with Ace Bailey, a guy that's projected top 3 pick in the NBA draft next year. He's like a 6'9" wing, really good scorer. He's kind of been banged up to start the year. He hasn't played yet, but when I saw him play in an exhibition game, and he's the real deal. And then Dylan Harper, Ron Harper Jr.'s brother, Ron Harper's son. He's their point guard, really good player. Now he was the number 3 player in his class. Ace Bailey's the number 2. I did not mention that. 2 just really good players, and Harper's fun to watch. And then also have Lathan Somerville, 3-star big guy. I think he's starting at center for him so far this year. 6'9", 240 big fella. Then they have some decent transfers as well. Guy from Princeton, Zach Martini, and then Tyson Acuff. He was at Eastern before. A Detroit guy. So Rutgers could be really good. They could be really average. I don't know. They'll be fun to watch. I know that their defense, I know Peichel said, won't be as good as it has been. So we'll see. I think that they'll be fun to watch, though. And thank goodness Michigan State only plays them once, because that would be a hard guard for Michigan State with the big wings being an issue for them. So that's Rutgers. Finish off with two West Coasters. The U's, UCLA. Mick Cronin's 6 season, 115.53, been really good. Also, completely average season last year. They went 16-17. Didn't really lose a lot of key guys, though. Adem Bona, he got drafted in the NBA. He's gone. Do have some key returnees. Dylan Andrews, really good guard. He's back. Sebastian Mack, and Ade Mara, center. And then some key additions. Trent Perry, 4-star point guard. William Kyle, 4-star transfer from South Dakota State. Eric Daly, he was a former borderline 4 or 5-star recruit, transferred over from Oklahoma State. He's a forward as well. And then Kobe Johnson, guard from USC. He's got Big Ten defensive team written all over him. So he's a good player. And then Tyler Below, he's from Oregon State, transferred to lefty. He's kind of a 3-4 hybrid, nice player. I think UCLA is going to be a pretty good team this year. I think they'll be top half of the Big Ten, and just be solid, fun to watch. Good defensive team.
Nick's a good coach.
He's as good as it gets. And fun. They always play really hard. Obviously, last year was a struggle for them, but the prior years before that, they had been really, really solid. And I think that we'll see them return to that, being a solid squad. They already lost a game. Actually, lost to New Mexico last week in a close one, who's also a pretty good team. Don't have a terribly hard non-con. They play Arizona and North Carolina, but nothing else too crazy for them. So we will see what the Bruins can do in their first year in the Big Ten, bringing that basketball pedigree to the Big Ten. That's about all they bring. What else do they get at?
UCLA actually has won a ton of national championships in a lot of sports.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's one of their Big Ten commercials, like how it's a very championship school. And it's actually a really good school too. It's hard to get to understand or to know that, because the fans out there are so,
no one cares.
They don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've won well over 100 national championships in sports in their time. So
yep. Well, learn something new every day. And then I'll end with USC. The Must Bus comes over from Arkansas's first season. A lot of success at Nevada, a lot of success at Arkansas. They weren't great last year, kind of a weird roster. Comes over, he's a West Coast guy. I think he's a really solid coach. He's kind of a crazy guy, but love it. They were very average again. Another team, very average last year, 15-18 Enfield. He left for SMU, which is a step down in my eyes, to go from US.
But he's going to the ACC.
Yeah,
Big Ten,
true. And he was
league-wise
kind of on a hot seat a little bit.
Yeah.
Hadn't performed well. Key losses.
Again, it's just hard in LA. Like, nobody cares.
It is. It's really hard.
If nobody cares about UCLA, imagine how they care about USC basketball.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah, no kidding. Not easy. Not an easy place, but they've won before. They've done some decent things. They've had some decent seasons. Key losses. Kobe Johnson, the guy I mentioned before from UCLA, transfer from USC. That's an odd transfer. Isaiah Collier, he was NBA draft pick. Boogie Ellis also, he's a really good player. Key returnees, how about this? None, because they didn't return anybody.
They completely flipped their roster.
Yes, completely.
Like Niagara.
Yeah, very insane. There's so many teams like that, new coaches, guys transferring out. Such a weird landscape, as we all know. Get to their key newcomers. Isaiah Elohim, 4-star small forward, good player. 11 transfers in. Wesley Yates, he was at Washington before. He's a pretty solid player. Desmond Claude probably was their headliner. He was Xavier's best player last year. Really big guard, 6'6", 210, can get to the bucket. Not a great shooter, but pretty solid player. Chibi Agbo, that's how I don't know how to say his name. I just butchered that, but he's a good player from Boise State. St. Thomas, that's an amazing name. Transfer from Northern Colorado. Will he be the next Dalton Connect? He's about a little bigger than him, same college. We'll see. And then Clark Sleshert, I don't want to say that last name either. That's a mouthful. Penn. He was their point guard last year. He's going to be their USC's point guard. Played with Nicholas, I would guess.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Sure.
But yeah, a lot of transfers in. We'll see how they all mesh together for the must bus schedule wise. They play. Let's see. They play Cal, who's not great. St. Mary's, decent team. That's really it. They don't really play a ton of tough non-con games there. 3-0 so far. Beat Chattanooga pretty good. Then hardly beat Idaho State last week, and then hardly beat UT Arlington last night, only 98-95. Oh, Lord. Could be a rough year. I don't think they're going to be a tournament team. I think it'll take a year or two for Musselman to get his feet wet and get
his style is pretty great, though.
Yeah,
so
it is.
See.
It is. He's a great coach. There's a lot of really good coaches in the Big Ten,
yep.
which is awesome. Love to see that. And then next week, we will finish with Washington, Wisconsin, Michigan State with our Big Ten previews.
Should we talk real quick, since we're on basketball, about Michigan State the last couple games?
Yeah, we can talk about them. I mean, Niagara showed some things, slow start. My biggest issue with Michigan State shooting the basketball.
It was the same last year. They did end up shooting an okay, like 37, 38% by the time the season ended, but you can't. They played well enough to beat Kansas, but you can't shoot 3 for 24, even if you're playing with a ball you've never touched before, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like, why they don't have a uniform ball that they play with in college basketball and college football is just beyond me. But that excuse aside, I mean, Aikens 2 points and did nothing else. Booker did nothing. I thought one of the great things from Izzo's post-game press conference is how he talked about Mayo, who's all shooter for Kansas, did not have a very good shooting night, but he had something like 9 or 10 rebounds and 6 assists. Mm-hmm. And his point was, you don't have to just score to have an impact on the game. And right. Booker and Aikens didn't do squat in that game.
Booker is become. Let's get on him. He's an issue because he has no motor. Just look at him.
His body language is bad.
Language is horrible.
And Izzo admitted that
he's
too in his
pissy.
press conference. Yeah.
And like
if he doesn't see a shot go in, he's not. He
didn't get rebounds. He didn't block shots. He doesn't play good defense. He doesn't set good screens. He's pretty. I would bench him. I would put Cohen Carr at the 4 and start him the next couple games and say, look, you're coming off the bench, Book, for a few games until you can get your stuff together, because the way Carr's playing, this is perfect. He's been hitting the glass hard, running the court hard, coming off pin downs and getting to the hoop. He shot a 3 the other day and didn't make it, but he shot it. He's trying that little push floater.
Game has improved.
He's improved. His dribbling's better. His passing's better. I would start him. I would.
I would give more minutes to Jace. Jace Richardson is.
Jace
I will tell you right
Tang
now.
Needs to play more.
Jace Richardson is Michigan State's best player. Period. And Kurtang absolutely has to, on a team that can't shoot the ball. He can shoot. He's got a quick release. He's got no conscience about shooting it. And I'm not saying he's got a green light from anywhere on the floor. He can't take dumb shots. But he's also going to play defense and rebound. Give him a chance to play. I get it. You're pretty guard heavy right now, but give him a chance to play. You need guys that can score to win important games. Get him some run early.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on the bigs thing. I think it's been good. Aikens he is what he is. I mean, he's going to have games where he plays well. He's going to have games where he plays horrible shooting the ball. He needs to do more than just score. I like what Fears is doing leading the team, but by God, he needs to look at the hoop. Yeah. He needs to look at the hoop.
He got buried too deep a couple times on great drives where he had no place to go and he threw it away. And, still doesn't have that many turnovers versus assists this year. He's got something like, 24 turnovers to only 24 assists to 4 or 5 turnovers. So he's got a really good ratio, but yeah, I agree. He's got to look to shoot. He's got to get that floater down. He can get to the cup, and he's a pretty decent free throw shooter. That's the thing is Aikens is stop settling for 3 and just drive. Driving, that's what Fiddler does. Fiddler is not a very fast guy. He doesn't have a fast release, but he's got a knack for getting fouled, and he can shoot 80% from the free throw line. And that's good enough to slow a game down when you need it and get a bucket or get 3 points at the free throw line when you need it. Michigan State's got to figure it out. Fortunately, their schedule minus Maui is not super, super difficult, the next couple of months. And so I think they'll have a chance to kind of, build up a little bit of, callous certainly in tough games, but get better along the way too. they've got definitely some toughness and some grit.
Yeah, I think it's one of the better rebounding teams we've had in the last couple of years so far. They get to the glass well.
But I don't want to hear that we shoot it well in practice. I don't want to hear that. Until you can start making it consistently in games, I don't care if you're a good shooter. Because Russell Bird shot it well in practice too, and we all know how that ended up. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. I said to a new friend at work who's a Michigan State guy, we like to talk hoops just about every day, like, hey, I'll take a single-digit loss. I don't expect Michigan State to win. I thought Michigan State played well enough at times to win. I hated to see Dickinson have the game that he did because he's such an ass bag. He is such a douche. But Michigan State chose not to double him, and, credit to him and Kansas. He played well, but Michigan State made the rest of their team play poorly. And, my adage has always been, like it was with Edie's, like, so what? One guy can't beat you. And you could say, oh, well, points-wise, it was one guy. No, it wasn't. It was Michigan State stopped everybody else and just didn't make shots. And it's not like they were contested shots for the most part. They were pretty open shots.
Open shots they were missing. Yeah. So,
all right, before we get into spot 4, a word from our presenting sponsor. Team Anders Realty will help you find the home that fits your wants and needs, and they make the process simple and fun along the way. The Anders have served thousands of clients for 30-plus years in the West Michigan area and are here to serve you today. Learn more at teamanders.com.
NFL was another wild week last week. We'll start with Thursday night. Ravens-Bengals was a classic. Burrow and Jamar Chase, that connection's amazing. The Bengals just haven't won close games all year. They really haven't. They kind of blew it against the Ravens. They were up, 21-7, and then poof. They end up losing.
And speaking of Thursday Night Football, Washington's up 7-0 on Philly right now.
But that was a good game. Finally, a few good Thursday games. Like to see that. Panthers, Giants, I don't care about that. Those teams suck. The Bears, Youch,
fired their OC.
Eberflus, I think, is next. They're terrible. Caleb Williams, just awful. But they're not going to be punting much, are they? Are you, Caleb? No.
2 years in a row where the number 2 pick is outplaying the number 1 pick.
Paint your nails more, bud. Bills, Colts. Bills 8-2 now.
The Colts made Richardson the quarterback again.
Geez. Well, yeah, because they suck. Their offense is not great.
No.
Chiefs get so lucky at the block like a 30-yard kick to win. Are you kidding me? They're not good. They're 9-0, and they are just
better to be lucky than good.
They're good. They're not great, and they're 9-0. They just found ways to win, which that's what you have to do in the NFL. But I just don't see that. Like, if the Lions and them played right now, I think the Lions would beat them.
Yeah,
I do. But whatever.
But much like the Lions, they find ways to win.
Yeah, true. Just in an uglier, different way. Big disappointment for the Falcons losing to the Saints after them firing their coach. Kirk, 306, he had a pick. Just not great for them to lose that game. But I think it looks like they dominated statistically. They just didn't win the game. 49ers also, big win over the Bucs. The Bucs have kind of fallen off after, a good start. They've had those injuries. I think it's catching up to them finally. Niners kind of getting back into form.
Got CMC back, yep.
Moved to 5-4. They're inching closer. How about the Steelers? I was wrong about them. I'll admit it. Russ isn't cooking McDonald's anymore. Maybe he's cooking Chipotle. He's improving a little bit. He's up in the ante. They're playing well. 7-2 so far, leading the AFC North.
Helps they have a really good running back.
They do. They have a really good defense. They have a great defense and great special teams that helps. But good for the Steelers. Vikings get so freaking lucky again. Darnold awful, and they just beat a bad Jags team. A bad Jags team.
Lions are favored by 14 over the Jags.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mac Jones is starting for them. Yikes. Chargers continue to be good, 6-3. Beat the Titans. That's not a team that is great, but still, winning is winning. Cowboys continue to embarrass themselves, get smoked by the Eagles. Their season's done.
I think they're 0-4 at home this year.
0-4 at home.
That's crazy.
They suck. I don't think they might not.
Jerry Jones and CeeDee Lamb were fighting over whether they should have curtains because CeeDee Lamb
from the
blinded
lights.
by the light. Yeah.
Well, it's true. You can hardly see the game when they show. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
You're a billionaire, but you don't want to put in curtains. Nice. Jets, Cardinals. The Cardinals smoked the Jets. First of all, screw the Jets. They're horrible.
Yeah.
3-7. Cardinals looking good though. 6-4.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
a
like
great
Tyler
season.
Cook. Yeah, it's 266 a touchdown. They'll do the Lions last. We already kind of talked about, but Dolphins beat the Rams. That was a big win for the Dolphins. Bad loss for the Rams. I watched a decent amount of them. The Dolphins aren't great, but they found a way to win. It's just what it takes. The Lions, you already touched on it, but that was as good as a win as you're going to see. The Lions probably brought their C- game.
Oh, yeah.
For real.
But here, let me read. This just lays. Mana wants us to grade the team too. So I'll lay it out for this. If you missed it, go back and watch it. It was the first time in Jared Goff's career that he's thrown 5 interceptions in a game, and just his second time throwing 4. Which, by the way, leading into that game, he had 4 for the season. Still, Goff was able to get the win, which put him in some rare company. Since 1991, quarterbacks to throw 5 interceptions in a game were a dismal 2-44. The only 2 to record a win in that span were Matt Ryan in 2012 and Tony Romo in 2007. Goff is now the 3rd. He's also just the 18th quarterback since at least 1948 to win a game despite throwing 5 interceptions, and just the 9th to do so since the 1970 merger. Quarterbacks that throw 5 picks in a game are 9 in 115 since 1970.
Wow. Yeah, that was... And he overcame it, right? Like, he threw the picks, but he also had some really good throws. The ball seam was coming out of his hand kind of weird. I don't know.
It was like diving, nose diving.
The Lions definitely struggled without Decker being in.
I didn't think Skipper played that bad, though.
He wasn't great, though. The left side of the line did not hold up well. Like, they didn't... Gibbs still had some decent runs, but not great to see Laporta go down. He's kind of day-to-day with a shoulder, but it's good to... The Lions play the Jags, kind of a tune-up game, really. Win that and, get to 9-1 with a few tough ones coming up in the next 4. That would be huge, but the Lions' defense continues to just be really good. They're the only team in the NFL that has not given up multiple passing touchdowns to a quarterback all season.
They have an interception in every game.
Unbelievable. Carlton Davis played great. Ali McNeil was Aaron Donald-esque. He was great. The Lions finally had a little bit more of a pass rush. Houston was decent. Who else was playing well on the D-line? Why am I forgetting names? Pascal, that's the name I was looking for. He played really well. Linebackers, Jack Campbell's had a really, really quietly good season.
Yep.
Brian Branch again, 10+ tackles.
2 PBUs.
Guy's a stud, man. Yeah. And then Jake Bates, obviously, with the 2 huge clutch kicks. Lions are just a well-oiled machine right now. Aaron Glenn, I would guess, will get a head coaching job the way that he is coached a defense that is, to be frank with you, has been hampered by a lot of injuries. And he's done a lot with not that much, which is...
They make big
awesome.
plays when they need to, which is
very,
which is
very
great.
opportunistic.
That's what winning teams do.
That's what you need. And the line, 8-1, you play the Jags, guessing you win that 9-1. You play the Colts, that's 10-1 going to Thanksgiving if things go correctly. And you play the Bears, who aren't great. Lions haven't been good on Thanksgiving, but they win that. They're 11-1 going into December. Like, you cannot get much better than that. Like, ask for more than that. And it's great. Hopefully it continues. And it's looking like the Lions could have a really special season. Obviously, in the NFL, anything can happen. Injuries happen. Teams get hot. Whatever fluke things happen. But the Lions are looking good. I'm excited for them.
Mana wanted us to grade the.
I'll give Goff. I'll give him a C because of his interceptions, but the rest of it was good. Backs, B+, A-. I thought they were good. Receivers, A. I thought J-Mo had some phenomenal catches. He only had 3, but they were really big ones. Amon-Ra was a stud again. O-line, I'll give them about a B-. I think that they could have been better, but
Sewell was good on their outside runs to the right
stud.
for sure.
He
had a couple of struggles in pass pro, but
yeah, that's all right. It happens. D-line, A, really good. Linebackers, right? I give us the whole defense and special teams an A.
Yeah,
I thought it was phenomenal.
We give special teams an A+.
Yeah, especially for giving up 23 points in the first half, then 0 in the second. I mean, that's awesome. Great win for the Lions. All right, let's get to spot number 5 and pick 'em, our last spot of the week. Let's do this thing. Starting off with another Friday game. UCLA back on Friday night football playing Washington at Washington. Close spread here. We're going straight up. I think Washington wins a very close game here. I do think it could go either way, but I'm going to say Washington wins this one.
Yeah, Washington, yeah, another Friday night for UCLA too. Yeah, Washington's 5-5. UCLA probably needs to. Let's see, looking at their schedule, they got Washington, USC, Fresno. They need to win 2 to get to a bowl game. Yeah, I mean, it's at Washington. I'm going to go with Washington, but it wouldn't surprise me if UCLA wins this game.
Ohio State Northwestern at Wrigley Field. 28.5 is the spread. I think Ohio State's going to cover this. Northwestern is not very good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ohio State covered easily last week, too.
Yep. How about Purdue versus Penn State? 28.5 is the spread in this one as well. I think Purdue loses by 28.
It's at Purdue, right?
Yep.
But here's the thing.
Purdue always has a...
I want to say that, but they've got smoked by Oregon. They got smoked by Notre Dame. They got smoked by Wisconsin. They got smoked by Ohio State. They usually play well against Ohio State. I think Penn State covers.
All right, you're going with the Nittanies to cover. All right, we go to Nebraska versus USC. Another close spread here. I think USC, they bench Miller Moss, by the way, their quarterback. I think that USC squeaks it out. I think Nebraska's going to be flirting with disaster of missing another bowl game going the last 2 weeks. I really do. I think USC squeaks it out.
And they got at USC, then Wisconsin, then at Iowa.
And they're 5. They're 5-4, right? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're 5-4. Who do you think's going to get? I think this is at USC.
I think USC is going to win. Yeah.
All right, let's get to big game. Rutgers versus Maryland. I don't like this game because I don't like either team, and I think both suck. I'm just going to go with Maryland. I don't know.
Rutgers 5-4. Maryland's 4-5. Maryland's got to win this really to stay alive. They've got, let's see, who do they have left after this week? They've got Iowa and Penn State. Their only chance, because they're not going to win both of those, their only chance to get to a bowl game is this. Rutgers has Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State left. They only need to win one of those. I think I'm going to go with Maryland based on what I saw last week and the way they played, but it would not surprise me if Rutgers won this game. All right. It's such a toss-up.
Oregon, Wisconsin. Oregon travels to Madison. 14.5 is the spread in this one. I think Oregon's going to cover it.
The last time they came east, they annihilated Purdue on a Friday night.
No, they played Michigan.
Played Michigan after that. That's right. So
which they covered.
They've done okay going east. What time is that game?
I think it's 8.
That's some of it sometimes. 7:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that helps them. I think Wisconsin's going to give them a run. I think it's a late backdoor cover for Oregon. I think they win by 17.
Last Big Ten game, Michigan State travels to Champaign, Illinois. 2.5 is the spread, virtually a pick'em with the home field advantage. Michigan State really needs to win this game to feel comfortable going into the last two about making a bowl game. And I think that they do squeak this game out. I think it's going to be like a 20-13 type, pretty low scoring. I think Michigan State gets the job done coming off a bye. I think they're going to be ready, decently healthy. I think they get the win.
Yeah, Illinois coming off of a bye too, and on a streak, three-game losing streak. Michigan State's on a 2-game losing streak. I think Michigan State wins 20-17 on a field goal at the buzzer by Kim.
I wouldn't mind that. Last two, Tennessee versus Georgia, virtually an elimination game. Close spread here. I'm going with the Bulldogs. I think Tennessee's kind of a paper tiger. Their quarterback play sucks. Really good question.
Is it at Tennessee?
Really good question.
Both teams have poor quarterback play right now.
Yep, I'm looking really quick. Where is it?
Georgia seems to rebound.
It's at Georgia.
They seem to rebound every time. Tennessee has won some classics between the hedges, but I'm gonna I'd rather see Tennessee win, to be honest, but I'm going to go with Georgia.
Same. And then Lions, Jags, 13 is the spread that I had it as when I put this together the other day. I think the Lions covered. I think this is blowout territory. And the last time the Lions played the Jags, I was there in person. The Lions annihilated them. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. They're due for, I said it last week, I said it to Mona, they're due for a dud, and they kind of played a dud, but still found a way to win. I still think they're due for a dud, but I don't think it's going to be this week.
No, I would see it more as like the Packers in a few weeks.
Right.
All right, that is around the world. Let's finish with a sprint. This is kind of a rhetorical question, but do coaches need to go to a clock management school in order to be a head coach?
Oh my gosh, yes, and they all because
Exhibit
Tom
A,
Izzo did it, and Sharon Moore.
Sharon Moore, Tom Izzo. Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing too: is for basketball, for crying out loud, go back to wearing a suit or at least a sport coat.
Yeah. Who's the worst Big Ten football coach right now?
Or Sharon Moore might be right up there.
That's
honestly.
what I think. I think he's horrible.
I don't think he
doesn't even know what he's doing. He's got his Nike Elite gloves.
Does he have the plastic fake?
Him and
headset?
Loxley, I think, are the worst. Those two, I think they both suck.
Yeah, I would agree. Probably, I would agree with that.
What happens?
Maybe Purdue's coach.
What happens if Colorado makes the playoff? What's the fallout?
Well, I mean,
what's the media going to do? Is really the question.
You know what the media? It's going to be like Kamala Harris all over again because that's what it's been. I mean, everything. Colorado is not everything that's wrong with college football because some of that is in our own state, but there are a lot of what's wrong with college football. Ugh, I don't even want to think about it.
Who's the next NFL coach to be fired?
Oh, it's got to be either Pedersen or Eberflus.
Yeah, I think Eberflus. I think he's toast. I think firing his coordinator was his way of kind of saying, "Okay, I know
that's the first thing.
Toast.
That's the first thing that you do to try to save your job."
Yeah. All right, that is the 199th. We appreciate you guys listening. Thank you. We're looking forward to 200 next week. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right. Meantime, as John D. McDonald, whoever that is, once said, integrity is not a conditional word. It doesn't blow in the wind or change with the weather. It is your inner image of yourself. And if you look in there and see a man who won't cheat, then you know he never will.